Welcome back. Border confusion. Congress cannot seem to pass a border deal despite working for months to reach one, only to reject it earlier this week. With record-high border crossings, no clear direction forward, and more congressional chaos, we'll take a look at who's responsible for all of this chaos, what the path forward is, and if we can even get another border deal. Plus, Republican dysfunction. From the legislative side to the political side, this week has not been a good one for Republican politics. With Ronna McDaniel out of the RNC and Mike Johnson facing one of his most embarrassing days in office, we'll take a look at how this affects the Republicans' chances at 2024 and how this affects Trump's chances of perhaps taking back the White House. We'll be taking a look at those stories and more today, February 10th, 2024. From Ishan Media, this is the Ishan S. Show, a podcast about the interesting and ever-changing world of American politics, with me, your host, Ishan. All right, welcome back to the Ishan S. Show. So you heard it at the top of the show about the border confusion that's been going on in D.C., and I want to talk about today some hypocrisy that comes in it. And really how this has become so extremely disappointing as not just a political observer, but as an American. We have a crisis at the border. You have to admit it. It is something that is out of control. We have had record high border crossings that have exceeded our capacity to be able to handle things. We are seeing record highs every day of people coming over the border. And a lot of the time, that's not being done through the right processes. It's what Border Patrol is reporting. And it needs to be solved. I mean, no matter what your perspective may be, it is an issue that needs to be handled. And Republicans, for a while, were very much advocating for something like this. They knew that they recognized that this was a problem that that they thought Democrats were going to struggle with. And when the attacks in Israel happened, Joe Biden wanted to fund Israel, but he also wanted to add Ukraine into the mix. He wanted to fund Ukraine. He wanted to provide aid to Gaza. And he also then said, let's also throw in a border deal. We'll make it a national security package. It's a national security package because we are helping strategic allies, and we're going to fund the border, which is a national security topic. Republicans, I guess, were caught a little off guard that Joe Biden is actually willing to come to the table to discuss border policy, because in terms of what they thought, their entire strategy for 2024, I guess, was kind of hinged on criticizing Democrats and Biden's handling of the border, saying that they're not qualified. So when Joe Biden said he'd come to the table for a border, they, I guess, went with it. They went with it only just to say that, fine, we'll just play hardball, right? That's what they were thinking. They'll play hardball and they will work so hard to derail Biden's efforts that they will just leave the table, and then they can blame the border chaos on the Democrats. But then Biden and Republicans made a deal on the border. And then I guess Republicans kind of thought, well, shoot, what do we do now? And this border deal, where they were trying to hold Ukraine funding over a border deal, saying that if you don't pass a border deal, we're not going to fund Ukraine. Biden and the Republican negotiators brought a border deal, brought Israel aid, and they brought Ukraine aid, all in the same legislative package. It is what everybody wanted. And in fact, Democrats made a lot of concessions. Democrats, they set asylum limits. They set a lot of provisions to close the border if need be. It gives the president a lot of power over controlling immigration policy. It's not a complete fix of our broken immigration system, because our immigration system is terribly broken. Look into it. But really, the Republicans got exactly what they were complaining about for months. And I just don't understand why then the next thing happened, which is they failed the legislation. They failed that legislation that they had been complaining for months and months and months. And they just said, and when they get a deal on the table that meets most of their needs, the only things it leaves out are entire like topics. When I say topics, I mean like entire pieces of policy. So it's not like anything was incomplete. The things and the provisions they had in the bills were completely what they wanted, were happy with, and it's something that Democrats were on the table ready to pass. They had the votes to do it. Ideally, if I was running this program, I would be thinking, okay, we got the votes, let's get the right policy in. But then a little gentleman by the name of Donald Trump said that passing a border deal would essentially get rid of Republicans' chances because now Democrats have been given a win. And so Trump started to campaign against this policy, against this package that essentially gave everybody what they wanted, solved this problem that's been going on for months. Trump said, no, we're not going to pass this bill. We're not going to do this. And it worked. The Senate failed the border deal earlier this week with 17 Republicans, or excuse me, not 17, 17 Republicans, we'll talk about them later, but Republicans failed this bill. I don't think in any part because of ideology. I don't think in any part because of policy, but only because of politics. It's only because of politics. And that shows the hypocrisy of the Republican Party right now. I know we're not supposed to be a biased show, but you have to report on what you observe. And if this hurts your feelings, I'm sorry. But these are the facts. This is exactly what has happened. Republicans have been complaining about needing a border deal for so long, only to fail a piece of legislation where they were at the negotiating table, where they probably got more of what they wanted. And yet they failed this bill because Donald Trump told them that if they pass this bill, Democrats and Joe Biden are going to get a win in 2020, in November. What is that even supposed to mean? That is called legislative obstructionism, where a non-member of Congress is now telling everybody what to do. And the problem is, everybody is getting scared into line into doing this because they know they're going to face a primary challenge if they pass this bill. So now Republicans, who are these champions of the border, I guess, saying they make all these arguments about the fentanyl coming across the border. They make all these issues about unvetted people coming in. They got the piece that they needed. But because it gives Biden the win, because it gives Democrats the win, which, I mean, honestly, if you look at it, kind of deserve because they came to the table and they made all these concessions, they failed the legislation. Hypocrisy. And poor old James Lankford, senator from Oklahoma, who was assigned to negotiate this piece of legislation. This guy is as conservative as you get. He was very MAGA. It seems like he's not coming back to the Senate whenever he's up for re-election, I think in 2028. Because the poor guy decided to go on a limb and pursue these negotiations, and now he's facing attacks for doing his job, for doing what the Republican leadership made him do. Trump is attacking him behind the scenes because he negotiated a deal. It's ridiculous. And this is congressional dysfunction that we are seeing affect our policymaking abilities. And it's the blowback that now James Lankford is facing that is so undeserved. Here's a clip about Lankford talking about a political threat that has been made on him.
They have policy differences. Some of them have been very clear with me. They have political differences with the bill. They say it's the wrong time to solve the problem, or let the presidential election solve this problem. In fact, I had a popular commentator 4 weeks ago that I talked to that told me flat out, before they knew any of the contents of the bill, any of the content. Nothing was out at that point that told me flat out, if you try to move a bill that solves the border crisis during this presidential year, I will do whatever I can to destroy you. Because I do not want you to solve this during the presidential election. By the way, they have been faithful to their promise and have done everything they can to destroy me in the past several weeks.
Effectively, Trump runs this show. And I know I've said it a lot. I've said it a lot for the past few years now. But this is undeniably a MAGA party, not the Republican Party. If you are not in line, you are chopped off. That's it. Like it's game over for you. Well, interestingly enough, this was all about Ukraine in the beginning. Republicans said they're not going to pass another Ukraine funding bill without a border deal. Yet now a policy or whatever legislation has passed in the Senate, basically exactly what we saw them vote on earlier. They just took out the border provisions and instead have funding for Ukraine, Israel, and aid for Gaza. And the foreign aid package, which is $95 billion, did pass in the Senate. That doesn't even get us started with the House. The House, in its own right, has seen even more stupidity and chaos. The House is probably... Nobody understood why the Senate would be a challenge. I don't think anybody expected the Senate to be a challenge because, honestly, there are smarter people in the Senate. But I guess that was an unforeseen challenge that came up. Now the House is the real challenge because the House is where we actually do know that there will be that will have opposition. There's not going to be a border package for the time being, but this foreign aid package that's going to be there, that will for sure. And it's so funny because throughout all of this, where Republicans say we're not going to pass a border deal because it helps the Democrats, where they say that we're not going to pass Ukraine aid because they have their own agenda or whatever, all they do is hurt themselves. Politically, this party is not understanding things. It's not making sense. And every time I bring this up to somebody who is on that side, they will say, no, we're just trying to upend politics. It doesn't work. There are people, there are voters who just care about the border. They don't care if Joe Biden's getting a win or not, but they are making fools out of themselves. For example, in the House, while complaining about the border, while complaining constantly that this is a Democrat-caused issue that is not being solved because of Democrats, Republicans have decided to launch an impeachment inquiry into Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, who, of course, granted, has overseen this border crisis, but they decide to impeach the guy at the top. They try to decapitate the Department of Homeland Security when we have a border crisis, even though Mayorkas is actually the one who negotiated a lot of provisions in this bill. They say, no, we're going to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. Republicans bring the impeachment vote to the floor, and they fail. How embarrassing could that be? In a vote of 214 to 216, Republicans, despite controlling the House of Representatives, could not impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. Have your opinions on what that impeachment may be, but it's embarrassing that they couldn't even round up the votes to do what they wanted. 3 representatives, I'll note Mike Gallagher and Ken Buck. Ken Buck from Colorado, Mike Gallagher from Wisconsin. These 2 and one more voted against this impeachment effort. And I guess this was just not any math that our Speaker Mike Johnson had in mind. That's Mike Johnson and his team had in mind. This was important math that they really needed to keep track of, that they could not get down. How... I always point to powerful speakers, like not John Boehner, he was the opposite of one, but Nancy Pelosi, for example. Nancy Pelosi never brought a policy to the floor where she did not know she had the votes. And have your opinions on Nancy Pelosi, she never failed a floor vote in this way. Mike Johnson is in month 3 of the job, I think, of a job that he wasn't supposed to have. He's an unknown backbencher that became the Speaker of the House. And it shows. It shows. It's actively learning leadership. But we don't need a rookie right now. We need somebody who knows how to get the job done. And I'm not saying that just about an impeachment. I'm just saying that about anything. Because in addition to the failed impeachment, which was funny in its own right, on the same night, they couldn't pass Israel aid. They couldn't pass Israel aid, which also was so funny. Because a lot of people said, no, we're not going to fund other countries. Oh, but some people were like, we're not going to do something without border provision. Mike Johnson introduced this bill and could not get the votes to pass Israel aid. He could not impeach the Secretary of Homeland Security, but despite that being a rallying call, it shows the incompetence of the Republican congressional leadership. Who is supposed to be Joe Biden's opposition when the opposition cannot rally themselves together? They're not on the same page. They don't know what they're doing. That's Republican politics for you. And with this foreign aid bill coming, I have this feeling that Democrats are probably going to be able to rally up the votes. Probably all 200 and, I think 216, 17 of them are going to be able to get the votes. And I have a feeling that at least some Republican moderates who are in Biden districts are going to move over and back the Democrats and pass the legislation that comes from the Senate. It's going to happen. But what I find cute is that Republicans are still not going to admit it. And I'm not saying Republicans as in all of them. There are some good ones out there. But MAGA is not going to really understand this, and they're just going to keep doing it. Even still, as if shooting themselves in the foot once wasn't enough, they're going to reintroduce this impeachment effort. They're saying Steve Scalise, the House Majority Leader, he is being treated for cancer right now, so he wasn't actually there to vote. They're saying when he comes back, they'll vote on this again. And it's going to fail again. Mike Johnson has a 1-seat majority. He doesn't have room for 3 defections. And literally 3 people are defecting. And that's the other funny part of this Republican mess. They don't have the votes. You don't have the votes. You don't have the votes from Hamilton. They don't have the votes. 3 people. 3 people is all it takes to derail Republican efforts. And I guess the stubbornness of the Republican leadership doesn't want to acknowledge the math. I guess not. Embarrassing week for Mike Johnson and his leadership. But on the same night, if we switch gears a little from the border, Republican politics, not a good day in general for them. I think this was Wednesday. Ronna McDaniel is out of the Republican National Committee. She had been serving for a long time as chair of the Republican Party, National Committee, Republican National Committee is the Republican Party's main fundraising arm. They do a lot of work in organizing national Republican efforts, funding candidates. They do a lot, and they have a lot of money that they work with. So Ronna McDaniel has been chairwoman. She's, I think, one of the longest serving chairs of a party, and I think definitely the Republican National Committee in modern history. She's been there since 2017. She's been there alongside Trump the whole time. And the best thing about her in Trump world for the longest time was that she was a loyal fighter for Trump. She did everything for Donald Trump. She fought with him day in and day out, backed his policies, backed his efforts. Sure, on the election, the big lie stuff about the election being stolen, she wasn't there fully, but she was pretty much there. Come on. It goes as far as you're not supposed to be biased as a Republican Party chair, so you're not supposed to back a candidate in a primary. But with Nikki Haley still in the race, she still, I guess maybe not her, but people on her committee were definitely circulating a petition or a resolution to just declare Trump the Republican nominee and stop Nikki Haley's efforts, even though not every vote has been counted. And that just shows that this was Republican Ronna McDaniel's leadership. I don't think it's this. I don't like it when people talk about it this much, but it is true that McDaniel literally changed her name for Donald Trump. She's Ronna Romney McDaniel. You know where the Romney comes from? Because she is related to Senator and former GOP presidential nominee Mitt Romney. She's his niece. She's from the powerful Romney, Michigan family. She was the chairwoman of the Michigan Republican Party, as fittingly. I want to go back to Nikki Haley for just a second because in other news, there was the Nevada primary and Nevada caucuses this week. Don't ask why there's two. But in the Nevada primary, where Nikki Haley was the only candidate on the ballot, Nikki Haley came in second place and lost to none of these other candidates. She lost to no one. And that's, sorry, I needed to throw that out there. Back to Ronna. She's been with Trump constantly, and she is loyal. So then when you listen to this clip of Trump, you might consider why she went through all of that for him.
How's Ronna McDaniel doing?
I think she did great when she ran Michigan for me. I think she did okay initially in the RNC. I would say right now there'll probably be some changes made.
Is it time for Ronna McDaniel to step aside?
Well, I think she knows that. I think she understands that.
Granted now, the effort to remove Ronna McDaniel does come from at least some shortcomings on her part, and it was, I think, pretty amicable. So it's not like traditional Trump firings where she's kind of pushed out and kind of forced out and bullied, but she definitely was not doing a good job. For example, in terms of the latest fundraising numbers, McDaniel was at the helm when the Republican National Committee only raised $8 million going into an election year. And $8 million is a lot of money. But in politics, that's pocket change. For some context, Donald Trump raised, I think, around $55-ish million. I could be so wrong about that. I don't remember that stuff off the top of my head. What I do know is that the Democratic National Committee and Joe Biden's campaign raised more money than Trump and the RNC. And McDaniel is definitely in part because of that. Also, since throughout her entire tenure, 2017, 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, Republicans have really only faced losses. I mean, yeah, they won control of chambers every now and then, but it's really not impressive. Like in 2018, it was a blue wave year. In 2020, Trump lost the White House. In 2022, they were saying there's going to be a red wave year when it ended up being a red flop year, and Republicans just won a 4-seat majority, but with a bunch of chaotic people, plus all the chaos that we've seen with them anyway. And then in 2023, Democrats once again took sweeping wins in states like Kentucky. Yet she has been at the helm of all of that. So yes, in some part it is to blame, but it's not even her fault. It's Donald Trump's fault. Trump is such a bad general election candidate, just objectively speaking, in terms of the numbers. Look at the numbers. Look at the policies. He doesn't fit well with independent voters. He doesn't fit well with swing voters. So I guess Ronna McDaniel kind of got scapegoated. So sucks to be her, I guess. But what is her future after this? I wonder, because now that she is not a Republican National Committee chairwoman, maybe she has a little more freedom to either embrace Trumpism or take her $30 million book deal and never, talk politics again. Up to her. She has a lot, or maybe not, to do. I don't know. I'm not familiar with her future plans. She's probably leaving after the South Carolina primary. Nothing has been made certain, so this is just a leaked report. Now, for Trump, who is going to handpick the replacement, most likely, he is picking Michael Whatley, the former or current chair of the North Carolina Republican Party. Trump says that he owes that he owes Whatley a thank you for helping deliver North Carolina for Trump in 2020. I think that's noble to, award somebody who got you something that was very difficult to obtain. Fine. But Michael Whatley is an election denier. So Whatley coming into the RNC chair's position is going to be a prime example of just the shift in Republican politics. Because throughout the last 5-6 years, Trump has slowly but surely put people in the right spots to slowly dismantle the party and fix it into his own liking. RNC is a really big change. With election denier at the top spot, that means that money is way more free to go to these types of candidates. And ultimately, are we seeing a political party getting dismantled and becoming more dysfunctional? Yes. Does it help Democrats? Probably, because election deniers will put election deniers on the ballot. Democrats will still keep Democrats on the ballot. And so Republicans that were, on the, normal side of politics are not going to be as successful. It's representing a shift. Republican politics continues to change at rapid rates that I don't think anybody would have foreseen 10 years ago. But here we are. Here we go. So that was the last few weeks of Republican dysfunction. I know I've not been around because I've been sick. So I'm back. I'm back and I'm well. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever else, I don't even know. Subscribe on YouTube. Thank you for supporting the YouTube so much. Subscribe to the Political News blog as well. Keep checking out Ishan S. Show articles. Stay updated. Keep informing yourself. Elections are around the corner in a lot of states, so figure out how to get informed. We're working on a way to get more people informed about stuff. So anyway, politics. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining the Ishan S. Show.
And so that does it for us here today at the Ishan S. Show. If you liked my commentary, then go ahead and follow the Ishan S. Show on Twitter and Instagram for breaking news posts and updates about the show. And if you want to learn more about political stories, then check out my political news blog on the IshanSShow.com and go ahead and subscribe to it. Do us a favor and share this episode and all your other favorite episodes with your friends and family. It's the best way for this show to grow and get more people listening to it. Thanks again for all your support, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.